welcome back to Movie Review Mom. And if this is your very first time visiting my channel, yay, you're here, you made it. I'm so glad. I'm the mom and I do the movie reviews. And my goal here is to give you the heads up on filmmaking quality and content so that you can make the best decision for you and your family as to whether or not you want to spend your time or money or both watching a specific movie. Well, today, the specific movie I'm reviewing is called Future People, the Family of Donor 5114. It's available on Discovery Plus channel on April 10th on National Siblings Day, of course. The movie is rated PG, mostly for talk about sperm and the concept of conception and how that happens. It's 98 minutes long, and I'm going to give you my movie review mom grade at the end of my review. So first, I'm going to give you an overview in a nutshell where I'll point out things I liked and didn't like about the movie. I'll give you tips for parents, talk about themes that are interesting conversation starters for your family, and point out some recommendations for other films that I think you might also enjoy. All right, so in a nutshell, Aquaman Jason Momoa worked as the executive producer of this fascinating documentary that began filming over 8 years ago. Director Michael Rothman follows a group of teens who discover that they were conceived from the same sperm donor, forming an unlikely family of familiar strangers. There are currently 37 known half-siblings from this one sperm donor. Future People explores the complexities of alternative conception while defining a new realm of modern family. Isn't technology amazing? Our ancestry is such an integral part of our lives. Alex Haley, who's the author of the world famous novel Roots, the Saga of an American Family, is a book that became a worldwide phenomenon and TV miniseries back in the 1970s. I remember watching it as a little girl with my parents and being mesmerized. The entire country was talking about it, and everyone was fascinated with this true story of an African-American family. And this man who was able to research his genealogy clear back to Africa when his first ancestors were brought into America through slavery. Anyway, it's fascinating. I tried to actually show the TV series to my kids, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. And they were like, oh, this is super old. And they wouldn't watch it. And as a little girl, I have such fond memories of watching it and feeling the great impact that that TV series and the book made. It just kickstarted a launch into the new hobby of genealogy. Well, it wasn't new, but newly rediscovered hobby of genealogy. Now everybody began looking for their family history, which I highly recommend. But anyway, I'm telling you all of this because I want to share a quote that he said. He explains that, and this is the quote, "In all of us, there is a hunger, marrow deep, to know our heritage, to know who we are and where we have come from. Without this enriching knowledge, there is a hollow yearning. No matter what our attainments in life, there is still a vacuum, an emptiness, and the most disquieting loneliness." That's the end of the quote. That's what drives all of these kids to search for their biological father. When my twin sister became interested in genealogy back when we were freshmen in college, the hobby was very contagious, and I always wanted to do whatever she was doing. And we ended up actually writing a book together to help others discover their own family history. You can purchase it on Amazon. It's called Ancestry: How to Research Your Family History and Climb Your Family Tree. And usually about once every 3 months, I offer it for free on Kindle. So check that out. Follow me on Facebook or Instagram, and I will post when that book goes up on Kindle for free. But of course, you're welcome to buy it too. Anyway, back to this documentary. Let me share some of the things I really liked about it. First of all, it is amazing to watch these kids grow up right before our eyes. I love that the film spans 8 years, so you can really watch their development throughout their journey. Once the kids discover each other, they decide to gather together for big vacations about once a year or so, where they find instant connection with each other. And aren't we all looking for connection? On one trip, the kids even traveled to the actual sperm bank where their father visited so many years prior. A lot of different kinds of families are represented among this nuclear group of half siblings, many of them being lesbians. I actually have lesbian friends who have children only because they were able to use a sperm donor to create their family. There are also other parents who simply weren't able to conceive for whatever various reasons. And so with the help of a sperm donor, they were able to conceive and have their families as well. The science behind it is just amazing to me. It's also really interesting to learn a little bit about the donor process itself, how the identities of everyone involved are very carefully protected. At the age of 18, we learn in the film that an offspring is allowed to reach out to the donor to see if he's interested in opening the door to communication. Sometimes they are, sometimes they are not, for a variety of reasons, and all of those reasons are respected. There's some talk about how the young donor in his 20s might not have fully appreciated what he was doing. It's probably true for many donors, actually. It's easy money when these guys need it, and they probably don't deeply consider all of the consequences of the future and the fact that these are going to be people who are related to them by blood. Now, there was no judgment, simply the conversation about that fact. Because all of the kids clearly share certain physical features, it's really fascinating to envision what the donor looks like during the majority of the movie. And I was surprised at how excited I was when the donor actually appeared on the screen. I was like, oh, we're going to get to meet him. But to protect his privacy, we don't actually get to learn his name. It is, however, really great to hear his voice and his touching comments and to learn a few other things about him during the course of the movie. I don't want to give you a lot of spoilers. Another aspect of this type of family creation is what it does emotionally to these kids. And it was heartbreaking to watch how some of the kids actually pulled away from their own families and even their mothers as they became more connected to their half siblings. A few of the moms were interviewed and even talked about how they almost regretted nurturing the half siblings relationships because it was causing a toll on their own nuclear family. Now, there's a lot of drama because these are emotional teenagers. It was also really amazing to see that some of the mothers actually had more than one child from the same donor. We also got to see a couple use the very last vial donation from that same donor many years later. I'm an identical twin. Yes, can you imagine? There's two of me. So I've always been really fascinated with genetics. And while none of these kids are actually twins, which would have been even more interesting, I think, you can definitely see the genetic resemblance among all of them. And then finally, I really love the clever movie poster. Now, there were some things that I didn't like or things that could have been done or handled better. For example, because these are teenagers, there is a lot of emotional drama. And of course, you hear the word like a zillion times. The sad thing is, not once did any of the children ever consider their mother's feelings and emotions and challenges during this journey. They were very focused on themselves. And that's not surprising because kids are generally focused on themselves and their own emotional experiences. But I would have liked the director to have explored more of those emotions with the parents. They were interviewed, but not nearly as much as the kids were. Of course, it was the kids who had the genetic factor that made all of this possible. Some of the kids also were highlighted or featured more than some of the other more outspoken kids. And I don't know if that was by choice or some of the kids were definitely more extroverts and others were more introverts. So that could have factored into it as well. Let me give you some tips for parents. First of all, as I mentioned, there's talk of sperm and conception and how all of that works. Now, that might be a good opportunity for you to teach your kids about that if you haven't yet. There are some lesbians who show affection. There are single parents. You see a woman actually give birth with some views of blood and a bare chest. There's no profanity, so that's really good. Young kids will probably be bored unless they have some interesting genetic heritage of their own, but teenagers will be more interested, I think. Now, some of the themes that were featured and illustrated well in the film are the definition of family and how that has expanded way beyond the traditional definition of family, connection and how truly important that is, relationships, self-discovery, and finding a good support system in life. And several of them pointed out that beyond being actually related to these people, they now had a large group of a support system that they would have for the rest of their lives. Some people find that in family, friends, neighbors, church, other communities, clubs, and organizations. And so I think that that's really cool that all of these kids are going to be able to experience this very unique friendship and sibling relationship for the rest of their lives. We really do need each other. Now, whenever I watch movies and documentaries, I always write down interesting lines and funny lines so that I can share them with you. And I include them in my written review at moviereviewmom.com. So you can see all of them there. But I'll share just a couple of them with you right now. I didn't write down any funny lines because the movie was pretty straightforward without a whole lot of humor. But there were some interesting lines that caught my ear. And most of the profound lines really were spoken at the very end after the 8 years as these kids reflected on the lessons that they had learned. So one of the lines was spoken by Naylin Griffey, and she says, "Your family is more than who is right there with you all the time," because these kids all lived around the country and they would have to gather to one location to enjoy that family relationship. And then Alexis Clay said, "You can come into this world mad about how you were conceived, but you also have to realize that you function completely independently for many of those other factors, and that you are your own person and that it does not matter at the end of the day. It's still you and it's okay." Okay, and so my movie review mom grade for this film is an A. I really enjoyed it. Now, let me give you a recommendation for another movie, and it's no big surprise. I already mentioned it. If you have a lot of time and you're interested in this African American family's history, do check out the mini series called Roots, a family saga. It's available on Amazon, and you can click down below to get the link. And if you purchase or rent that, it actually helps my channel to grow. So thank you so much. All right, that's it for my review. I hope that if you watch this documentary that you enjoy it and that you hug your family a little bit tighter and closer today. All right, until the next movie review, bye for now.